Sometimes you're trying to solve an equation that's in rational form, or it's a fraction, and it can sometimes be confusing because fractions scare people. I don't know why. They're not that bad. But this looks really intimidating, right? You start thinking like, how do I do this? Well, what I want you to do is anytime you see an equation that you're trying to solve and it's in a fraction, I want you to just think about clearing the fraction, okay? And what I mean by that is I want you to get rid of the denominator. I want you to completely clear it so there is no more fraction to work with before you start trying to solve anything, okay? So we look at this and we say, what can I multiply everything by that once I multiply it by that, there will be no more fraction at all? Well, I noticed that both of them have 9 as the denominator. So I should just be able to multiply this side by 9 and then this side by 9. And when I do that, this 9 on the top canceled out this 9 on the bottom, right? And this 9 on the top here cancels out this 9 on the bottom. So I end up with x minus 5 equals negative 3x plus 15. And actually now you're really excited because you know how to solve something like this. This is basic algebra 1 stuff, right? We're going to add 3x to both sides. And we end up with 4x minus 5 equals 15. And then we add 5 to both sides. And we get 4x equals 20. Then we divide by 4. And we get that x equals 5. And we go back and then we check that solution. The one thing that happens every so often is we get a number that it can't be because it would make a 0 in the denominator. So always check that. But truly, most of the time, the numbers we get work. So if I came back up here to the top and I put 5 in here, I get 5 minus 5 is 0 divided by 9 is 0. And then negative 3 times 5 is negative 15 plus positive 15 is also 0 divided by 9 is 0. So does it work out when I put 5 in here? It absolutely does. So the answer is x equals 5. So again, we just clear the fraction. Let's try it again for something a little bit more complicated. Now this one, again, we want to clear the fraction. We want to figure out, ask yourself, what can I multiply everything by that will make it so there are no more denominators at all? And I look, and I can't multiply by 3 because that won't clear this fraction, right? I'd still have 3 over 5. And I can't multiply by 5 because it wouldn't clear this fraction. So what do I need to multiply by? Well, I need to multiply by the least common denominator. And you guys are actually pretty good at figuring that out. For this one, it's 15, right? If I multiply by 15, it's going to clear this fraction and this fraction. And I'll show you how it is. So I just remember my least common denominator or least common multiple is 15. I can rewrite 15 as 5 times 3, and that's going to be helpful for me as I'm trying to clear this fraction. So I multiply this one by the least common denominator, which is 15, or 5 times 3. Should have given myself some more room, shouldn't I? All right, I think we're going to come down here. Let's see. That one's 5 times 3. Now, if I do it to one part of the equation, I have to do it to all parts of the equation. So I'm going to go ahead and just spread this out for you so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just multiplying by 5 times 3, which is 15, right? But since I did it to one side of the equation, I have to do it to the other. So even though there's just a 6 over here and it doesn't need the fraction cleared, I absolutely still have to multiply by 5 times 3, or 15, because if I do it to one side of the equation to keep it balanced, I got to do it to the other. Okay, now you're going to see why I wrote this as 5 times 3, because when I go to multiply this, I end up with 5 times 3 times x over 3 plus x minus 2 times 5 times 3 over 5 equals 6 times 5 times 3. Now I look at this and realize, oh, look, 3 on top and 3 on bottom, those cancel out. 5 on top, 5 on bottom, those cancel out. So I end up with 5x plus x minus 2 times 3, we'll just write it like that, equals, and then 6 times 5 is 30, times 3 is 90. Okay, and then now this is just a basic algebra problem. The fractions are completely cleared. If the fractions didn't clear all the way, then either I picked the wrong least common multiple or I did some algebra wrong. So if your fractions don't clear stop and go back. You need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Anyway, 3x minus 6 equals 90. We add 6 to both sides. We have 8x equals 96. We can divide by 8, and we get x equals 12. Then we go back and check this in the original equation. If I put 12 in here, am I going to end up dividing by 0? Nope, I'm not. I'm going to have 12 divided by 3, which is 4, plus 10 divided by 5, which is 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. This checks out. It is absolutely a solution. All right, one more. 2x plus 3 plus 7 equals negative x over 6 plus 12. So again, I want to clear the fraction. So what number could I multiply every single thing by and it would clear my fraction? Well, the least common multiple of 3 and 6 is 6. Because if I multiply this by 6, it'll clear that. But if I multiply this by 6, it'll also clear that. Okay? So my least common multiple, or least common denominator, however you want to say it, is 6. I can write that as 3 times 2, and that might help me in some of my situations. So I have 2x over 3 times 3 times 2 plus 7. But remember, if I do it to one thing in the equation, I have to do it to every single term. And terms are separated by addition or subtraction. So this means if I multiply this by 6, I also have to multiply this term by 6. Okay? So got to multiply by 6. And we're just going to go ahead and put a 6 there because we know we don't need it to be 3 times 2 that time. Then we have negative x over 6 times 6 plus 12. Oh, that's another term, so I've got to multiply that by 6 as well. This is the most common mistake. People forget to multiply by every single term. All right, so I notice that the 3 on top will cancel out this 3 on bottom, and I get 2 times 2, which is 4x. Plus 42 equals, and then the 6 on top cancels the 6 on bottom, and I just have negative x plus 72. I add x to both sides, and I have 5x. I subtract 42 from both sides, I have 30. I divide by 5, and I end up with x equals 6. Isn't that so much easier? Once you get to here, this is just algebra 1, right? So don't even mess with this, because what a lot of people try to do is they try to get common denominators and they get everything over to one side and get everything in the other side. You end up multiplying by 6 anyway to clear the fraction anyway. Just clear the fraction at the beginning and then you never have to think about it. So let's check this. This is 2 times 6, which is 12 over 3 is 4 plus 7 is 11. And then negative 1 plus 12 is also 11. So yep, it checks out. We have a winner. The one more thing that I forgot to put on here that is really important is if you have something like a fraction inside of a fraction, I have no idea if this one is going to work out very well, but let's just see. If you have something like this, a fraction inside of a fraction, you always want to clear the fraction first, right? And remember what we can do in math, a totally legal thing to do in math is to multiply the top and the bottom of a fraction by the same number. So if I multiply this by 3 and I multiply this by 3, this is going to cancel that 3 out, and this is going to cancel that 3 out. And I didn't do anything illegal, right? Because I multiplied the top and bottom by the same number. So really, I just multiplied by 1. So I end up with x minus 2 over x minus 5. That is so much easier to work with than this fraction inside of a fraction. So anytime you see something like this, you also want to think about clearing the fraction.